Imagine you're taking a walk in the woods and you hear something rustling in the leaves next to the trail that you're walking on. And you stop and you know there's a little critter in there, a little animal. You don't know if it's a snake. You don't know if it's something dangerous, but you just want to see what it is, right? Here in Florida, it could easily be a lizard. They're all over the place. But some places, like in New York State and New Jersey, I have seen little chipmunks. And I don't ever see chipmunks. I mean, here in Florida, there's squirrels everywhere. And so seeing a chipmunk is pretty cool. So today we're going to paint this guy. Chipmunk eating an apple. Very cute. Cute is the word for today. Do you remember, if you're old enough, do you remember Groucho Marx? He had a TV show, and I think if the guest said a word like cute, then that was the word of the day, and it would come down on a string, and it would say cute, and then cute would come down, and I guess the guest won a prize or something. I don't remember that. Anyway, that's besides the point. Let me show you how I painted this little guy. Okay? Can you hear him chewing? All right, let's go. All right, well, let's see how we can do on this one. We want a cute little chipmunk. So I want to make him, let's see, from about there, somewhere around there. He's got a big round, got puffy cheeks. So he's got a round piece there, and he's got his pointy nose right there. Let's see, let me see if I can figure this out now. Let's make a round circle first. And over here, another curve, not completely round, not a perfect circle. Over here, we'll put his little back part of his leg. And over here, let's see, we'll go down here. He's got a tail. Actually, I don't know if this is a squirrel or a chipmunk, but I'm going to put him right there, and I'm going to put his tail off the picture so his tail isn't even in the picture. Because this little guy is eating an apple. I'm looking at a reference photo here on the computer screen. So there's the top of his head. He's got these stripes that go here. You know, I'm not even sure he's a chipmunk. I think he is. He's just cute. He's cute. Cute is an interesting thing, isn't it? And cute is in the eye of the beholder, right? I think all people would agree that this guy is cute. But a hawk would look at him as dinner, or lunch, or a snack, or something. I know that's horrible, but that's just the way nature is, right? Let's see, let me get this guy's, he's got his big cheek coming out over here. He's got this cute little, I mean, everything about this guy is cute. Cute is his name. I think, I hope I make him as cute as he looks on the photograph I'm looking at. There's a tiny little ear there. When I was a kid, I had a hamster. I had a lot of hamsters when I was a kid. I was the hamster guy. In fact, I had a hamster that had babies. I think maybe all of us did, right, at one time or another. And my parents said, well, why don't we sell them to the pet shop? And we did. I don't remember the money part of it. I just remember bringing them there, these little babies. We brought them to the pet shop, and I remember that. There's not much more to that story. Actually, it wasn't a pet shop. I don't know if you guys remember, if you're from the Northeast, there used to be a store called Times Square Stores. It wasn't in Times Square. Although maybe there was one in Times Square, I don't know. but it was a department store, kind of like Kmart or Walmart now. And it was called Times Square Stores, and it was a department store, and they had a pet department. Yes, they did, a pet department. And I don't remember all the pets they sold, but I'm pretty sure they sold fish, and I'm pretty sure they sold little hamsters. They obviously did, because they bought mine. And yeah, so we brought my baby hamsters there. The hamster who had the babies was a hamster I had. Now keep in mind, oh gosh, how old was I? I was very young. Maybe, let me think. This was in Levittown in New York, so I was probably um, 6 or 7 maybe years old. That's it, 6 or 7. And I had a hamster. My hamster's name was Dick. I know. And when the hamster had babies, then we realized that Dick was a female, obviously. So I changed the name to Mrs. Dick, and I remember my parents thinking that was the funniest thing. And I guess, well, it's funny. I don't know why that's funny, but it's funny. They're having a good laugh over it. So that's just the way it was. We're talking about 1961, 1962. That's how long ago this is I'm talking about. Yeah, a long time ago. That's my memory of my hamster. Well, especially that one hamster, Mrs. Dick. And then I have another memory. I don't think it was Mrs. Dick. I think it was another hamster I had. And the hamster was in the basement. The hamster cage was in the basement. And we didn't have a heated basement. And it was winter. And boy, this guy's got a grip on this thing with his mouth. It's right there. So it's got a big grip on this little apple here. I mean, his lip is right around it. Whoa. That guy's got a mouth. That's why they can bite you so hard. So anyway, I had this hamster, and he lived in the cage in the basement. And the basement didn't have heat, as I mentioned. And Dick, not Dick, but whatever the hamster's name was, froze. And I thought it was dead. And so I got sad and got a shoebox, and I was going to go in the backyard and bury it, because that's what we did. That was part of what you learned, growing up, that things die. I guess that was part of learning, But anyway, one of my brothers, I think it was my brother Tom, noticed that Dick's, I keep calling it Dick, maybe it was Dick, I don't know, but that the hamster's whiskers were moving a little bit. He said, "It's still alive." So we put it on the heater. I am not making this up. We had a big, like a heater vent in the floor, and we put the shoebox with the hamster in it on the heater vent, and sure enough, the hamster came back alive. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that great? It was great for me as a kid, because I wasn't sad anymore. My hamster was back alive. Now, probably not a good thing if you're trying to teach a kid about life and about death and all that comes along with everything we do. All right, I think he's getting cute now. Now he's got a hand over here. I gotta make sure I put his hand. It comes right out from under here. It's like there's his cheek and there's his hand, and it's coming out here. He's got these little tiny fingers. So I'll just do like that. There. I want to really make this a good, like an illustration, like I'm doing for a children's book. I don't really care if this is artsy or not. I just want it to be an illustration. So there's our piece of an apple, a little bit of skin hanging down from the apple. And there's that hand holding onto it over there. And that hand holding onto it over there. And he's perched on a rock. And the rest of it's going to be blurry in the background. Maybe the hint of some leaves here and there. But keep it dark. Keep it dark so that he can be lit. Most of this guy is going to be lit. So, all right, now what I want to do, I want to take some of the very, very dark areas and I want to do them with ink. That way they'll stay just the way I want them to stay. So let's go ahead and give him those eyes, those very expressive eyes. A little bit of reflection in the top. There we go. And I'll go ahead and give him some depth in his ear. So I don't gotta worry about that with the watercolor. So this is another example of mixed media, obviously. Mixing two media, well, three actually if you count the pencil. And then over here, this eye. There we go. And over here he's got these two stripes that seem to be very dark enough to warrant using ink. That's kind of what I'm looking for, is just pieces, areas on the chipmunk that look like they're dark enough to warrant using ink. This stripe looks like it comes all the way down the back. We gotta remember he's furry, so try to give it that furry look. That's gonna have to happen with the paint mostly, although I can take a few little drawing things here and add just a hint of coarseness to that little line right there. That's a white line, so I want to make sure I get this one just as dark as that first one and keep that middle one with the paper showing through. And let's hope we get it. Let's hope. Now I know you've already seen the opening clip because I do that last, so you already know how I did on this one. So I do, for those who've never heard me talk about this before, I do children's books, and I don't do I've done a few with traditional medium like colored pencil or acrylic. I think I used gouache on a couple. I don't think I've ever done one with watercolor, but most of the time I do the children's books with the digital, with Procreate. The reason for that is because it's a lot easier to make changes. Like if you're working on an illustration for a book and something doesn't quite jive right with the story, jive, I like that word, then you can go back and you can change it. Sorry, didn't mean to cough into the microphone.
Yeah, so when I do children's books there, I always try to use digital in such a way that it looks traditional, so it has that look. But it's really much more convenient to be able to change things. Now I'm just using a little bit of cross-hatching technique here to, I guess, create that look of hair. All right, let's see. His nose is a little dark. A little bit there. Anything else that needs to be dark? I don't think so. Maybe the lines between his fingers. Yeah, those are dark. Some of this area around his face. This line that goes around his eye. When I was camping with my son Alex, we were upstate New York someplace, and we stopped at a rest area on our way to the campsite when he was younger, much younger, and there were some chipmunks right there, and it was unique to us. It was a treat because we don't see chipmunks here in Florida. I'm not saying they're not here, I've just never seen them. But I saw chipmunks in New Jersey, and I've seen chipmunks in upstate New York. So I'm just adding the thing. See, the ink will be permanent. It won't spread with the watercolor. So it's kind of why I want to do a little bit of this in ink. Just these little fingers over here. Just the spaces between them. Then the edge of his arm. Right there has some pretty dark spots. In the shadow, he's got shadows around his cheek. All right, I think we're ready for the watercolor. He really looks cute, doesn't he? He's really got a cuteness to him. He's eating that apple. All right, let's start with the watercolor. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully I didn't push the page too far down on the frame. All right, now let's we don't need the pencil anymore, or the eraser. I think what I'll do is I will, you know what, I think I'm just going to start straight with him, and I'll do the background last. I think that's how I'll do it. So let me get some water over here, because I want to get the brown tone. I'm not really sure what to use for brown, so I'm going to start with this orange. Let's see what this looks like. That's red. Let me add some green to it, see if that turns it brown. Yeah, it sort of does. Sort of works. Okay, let's try it. Let's get some on the darkest areas of this guy. Just grab it from here. So he's the darkest there. And it is kind of a reddish brown anyway. It's not perfectly brown. Add a little bit of green to that red and it turns it brown. Let's make it a little bit darker than it is. What I want to do is grab some up here, get some on top of his head. Onto his ear. And we'll get the little tiny colors. It's really a very tiny animal, isn't it? This is incredible. It's incredible. This right now, as I'm painting this, right now as you're watching this, there's a chipmunk somewhere in the world that's either sleeping, looking for food, living, avoiding predators. I mean, isn't it incredible when you think about it? When you think about like the animals out in the wild, like right now in the Ocala National Forest, right now there's a bear looking for food, or a bear maybe just waking up. It's 7:16 in the morning, so I don't know how late they sleep. But right now, there's probably a dog barking at a deer making noise in the woods, right? So this guy's got a little bit of white right there. Everything around his eyes is white. Okay, when I get up here a lot lighter, it's not like a butterfly where you can kind of just let the colors kind of do their own thing. You got to kind of stay in place here. But the darkest area is right here. And then he's got like a dirty water dark, which I'm going to use. I think I'll use a little bit of purple for that. Just a little bit down here at the bottom of his white fur. In fact, I might use some of that up here too. I know it's not purple, but I'm using that as a shadow color. There. That looks good. Get this really dark over here. See what happens is it graduates. It goes from dark to light. I can use that purple over here too. Maybe over here a little bit. This will be a more than one layer job here. This little guy. This little guy gets more than one layer. So when I was a kid, I had a hamster. I told you my brother, Bill, had an iguana. He was more into the not so cute animals. I was the guy who always wanted the cute animals. Yeah, I want something cute. A bunny. I had a bunny rabbit. I had a rabbit named Duchess. When I was a little guy, my family had a rabbit named Susie. It's funny how you remember those things, right? I remember Susie. And we had a turtle. I remember my father got a turtle from somewhere, and the turtle wasn't eating, and he was afraid it was going to die, so we brought it to this pond, or this lake, and my father let it go. And you know, every time we drove past that lake, I would look to see if I could see the turtle. I don't remember if the turtle had a name. But isn't that something? That's how you are as a kid. That's how I am now as an adult. I don't know why I would limit that to just being a kid, but yeah, I had always was looking for that turtle. You know, it's like when you have anything happen to you, when you pass that same spot, you always remember. You have memories. I can drive through the town I live in, and just I could probably point out 100 different memories. In fact, when I went to New York City with my son Alex, when he was old enough, actually, I can tell you the truth about this, he took me to New York City. So he was already an adult and working, and he had money, and he was going to go with his wife, and for some reason she couldn't go. So he asked me if I wanted to go, because he knows, you know, that I grew up there, and he knows that I love it. I love New York City. And so he invited me to go see a band called Sigur Rós. I'm probably saying it wrong. I think it's Sigur Rós or something. It's a band from Iceland. In Radio City Music Hall, we were going to go see them, and we did go see them, and they were great. I really loved them. I was the oldest guy in there. He's easily the oldest guy in that room. But after, you know, the other part of the trip, and it was just going beyond the concert part of it, was me showing Alex New York City. Now, there are people who will give you a tour, and they will be very knowledgeable about the history of what took place here, and who lived there, and which celebrity lived here, and which historical figure did what. But that wasn't the tour I gave Alex. I gave Alex the daddy tour. This is where Grandma worked. This is where Grandma met Grandpa. This is where I used to hang out when I was a kid. There was a game room in Times Square. I used to go there all the time. This is where that happened and this happened. And all those very, very cool memories. And so I don't know how much of it he will retain, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that we had that moment. It was good for me, and hopefully it was good for him. I think it was. And it was a great memory for me. And he had some points or something. We stayed in a nice place on it was on 8th Avenue. It was up in the 50s somewhere, so north. It would be closer to Central Park than Times Square is, but not too far. I could walk to Times Square from it. In fact, I did one morning, because I always get up early. So I got up early and I walked down to Times Square just to see it again, because I hadn't seen it in so many years. And what was I going for? Oh, it was telling him about all the places that meant something to me and all the memories I had from all those years ago. All right, now I gotta get this little guy's, all the shadows, everything. Gotta remember to keep this light. Spread this out and blend it. Let's see if I can get some of that purple there for the side of his cheek. Very watered down, has to be very super watered down. I know that looks weird as purple, but it's serving as a shadow. I think I kind of like it like that. Yeah, just so I can do the same thing now here in Ocala. I can drive around Ocala and remember where I used to work. I used to work for the newspaper, and I could show you where I worked over there, different things. Probably boring to a lot of people, to be honest with you. So I was listening this morning. I heard the Neil Young song, "Old Man, take a look at your life. I'm a lot like you were," or something like that, right? And I was thinking to myself, well, that's Neil Young is an old man now, right? And I'm an old man now, and he was singing a song to an old man to try to tell him, the old man in the song, I guess, that he's not that different than him. I guess when you're younger, you feel like old people look down at you and don't like your ways. I know that that's probably true for a lot. It's not true for me. I like seeing young people. I think young people are the innovators of society. It's hard pressed to find somebody older who actually changes things. We're usually set in our ways. So it's the young people who always say, here's the newest hairdo, and here's the newest fashion, and here's the newest way we're going to play music, and maybe even some of the technical things, like here's the newest way we're going to paint a picture. Maybe it applies to this, which I'm sure it does, because I've seen so many digital pieces of work. See, even me, because I'm an old guy, but even though I'm using a digital platform now, is it called a platform? Even though I'm using a digital platform, I don't mean this moment. This is as traditional as it gets, I think. But I still paint like it's traditional, even if it is a digital, even if it's on Procreate. I think I made that a little bit too red right there. Should be more orangish. He's coming together. He's starting to look okay. Little guy just eating away at his little apple there. It's coming to life, right? I guess if the sun was hitting him just right, he would have some of these colorful tones on him. It's okay. It's for the illustration purposes, like I started to say in the beginning of this video. The idea of doing children's books. Even like books that are illustrated for older children or young adults. It's a really rewarding thing. Let me just take some of this and bring it around. Get some of this purple over here. kind of looks kind of cool, isn't it? Those reds and those purples coming together. Gotta figure out what to do with this apple here. Spread this a little bit more. You don't see too many kids with little hamsters anymore. In fact, you don't really see pet shops anymore. I guess that's a good thing. I guess we were not being kind to animals back when I was a kid. We didn't think of it that way, but you know, you think about how little animals are, and like in the zoo, like zoos are now no longer like they used to be, and it really is a good thing. I used to work at a place here in Central Florida called Rainbow Springs back in 1972, I guess it was. And back then they had this little animal area, and now I can go back there and those cages are still there. The Rainbow Springs is what it's called. It used to be, like I say, a theme park. And now it's a state park, so now there's no captive animals anymore. There's just whatever's there is natural. If you run into a deer, it lives there. But those cages, some of the enclosures are still there. Not the, well, yeah, I think some of the metal's still there too. I was going to say just the concrete, but it's still there. And you see how small of an area those little guys had to live in. You know, it wasn't much. And when I say little guys, some of them were large cats. I don't think we had any lions. I think there was a mountain lion, maybe. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't even remember. I was 17. 17's old enough to know, but what I'm trying to get at is I was more paying attention to things that a 17-year-old boy would pay attention to. I know you know what I mean. I wasn't so interested in some of that other stuff. Although I was always interested in this, in art and in music. But you go there now, and there's a place that brings back a lot of memories for me too, by the way. Okay, I'm trying to add a little bit of this purple just to make that white not so white. Put some shadows in here, because mostly this is a white belly on this guy. In a way, I'm glad I'm doing the animal first. All right, now let's get that apple. Try to get that red skin of the apple. Yeah. There we go. Now the apple's coming to life. And again, I'm going to use some purple to accentuate some of the shadows on the apple. Okay, let me do that right now. Get some of the purple from up here. It's a little bit darker in there. Purple does make a very good shadow on red. Works out nicely. Sometimes blue is a good choice for a shadow color. I really think it's a matter of experimenting. Here we go. I think this little guy, we almost have him. And keep that light there. He's got that apple. He's chomping on it, getting his daily vitamins. There's a little bit more orange down here. Okay. Now the only thing I want to make sure I get right, just a little bit of darkness right there, just to contrast it with the apple. Okay. Now the white part of the apple doesn't need much, but again I'm going to use a little very light purple so that it's not completely white. There we go. Alright, now it's going to be the rest of the picture here. Make his feet a little bit darker. You don't see much of his feet in this picture. There we go. There's our little guy. I think he's looking pretty good. Just accentuating a little bit of these shadows here. These dark areas. Just a little bit. A little bit down here to kind of show the separation of his legs. Don't want to fuss with it too much. I think it looks pretty good. A little bit more red in that apple. How about that? A little bit brighter red. Okay, there we go. Now I think I'm probably going to have to let the background, the little guy dry. Gonna let him dry. Well, he kind of is dry. Yeah. except for right there, a couple areas. But pretty much he's dry. All right, so let's go ahead and brush in some, oops, knocked my brush off. Let's go ahead and brush in some greens, some light greens for these leaves here. And then we'll brush around them to make the darker areas. And again, this is just my attempt to create a background without worrying too much about the details. Keep it more yellow-green. Go ahead and take this up here and use this as a wash. These colors back here. We do want the background to be a lot darker than the chipmunk. So that's going to take a little bit of doing. I'll go ahead and start down here also. This rocky surface here. There's a rocky surface and keeping it undefined. Make sure we get this pretty dark up against him to accentuate how bright he is actually. Yeah, this is definitely a multiple layer background. I have to use my little brush after a while. It's coming around. Right now it's a little bit awkward looking because the background is about the same darkness as the chipmunk, but I will darken that just by keeping up with it. Just keep doing little things. You keep adding darkness to it. See, I'm keeping it very undefined. The chipmunk, is very defined, but the background is very undefined. That's kind of what I want. But see, right now it's not dark enough behind him. It's got to be like a lot darker. I want to make sure some of this, the surface of where he's sitting is pretty bright right here. So just keep working on it. And I kind of like the way this looks too in the back here, on the other side of the card. It's almost like when I do a card, I do a painting on one side and an abstract painting on the other side. But watercolor abstract, not really a well thought out abstract. It's kind of a blotchy thing that sort of has a look of its own. I like bringing those colors down into the front of the card. Okay, now let's try to get this guy. All right, now that we have all that pretty much colored in, I'll keep working on this over here, since I need to wait for that to dry up there. And I'll create this like rocky surface where he's sitting. People are waking up, getting ready to go to work. I can hear the cars starting to get more plentiful on the street. Some limbs, some little branches and stuff that are poking up here and there. That old Rembrandt thing where you keep, where you don't make all contrast. You have some light up against light and dark against dark. It's kind of a cool thing to do if you just remember to do it. So I'm going to try to do it a little bit here so it's not completely contrasted. I want that cheek to be, and that hand, I think I want them to be a lot contrasted with the background, just to set them off a little bit. Go ahead and add some green in there. Some all right, let me go ahead and use the smaller brush again. It's a little bit wet. I want to accentuate some of this stuff. I'm trying to decide if I want the apple to be darker. Maybe I do. Let me get some purple in there. Make the apple. Yeah, that's working out nice. Make the apple actually darker than the background, as opposed to the way I was doing it. I was trying to make the background darker, but I think it works out better if I make the apple darker. And then what I'll do on the bottom, that little piece of apple skin that's hanging off of there, I'll make that the light part. I'll take some of this here. There we go. It's starting to look okay. Drag some of these colors over. I think I want to make the background behind him darker green. Go ahead and a little bit of that purple. So he lives in the woods. It would make sense to have a lot of green around him, right? Makes sense. Alright, I'm pretty sure that I'm almost done with it now. And what I want to add are some lines. So I'm going to take away a little bit of the color on his cheek over here. See if I can lift it up a little bit. Make that cheek white again. Very carefully, almost like mopping it up. There. Cute little guy, right? Cute little guy eating. Here we go. All right, now I want to make some lines in the background, like branches. Make that a little bit wetter, just to spread it out a little bit. All right, I think we're done. Let me just get rid of some of that right there. That's a bit too much. Okay, I think the chipmunk is done. What do you think? Okay. I'll fold it up after it dries. All right, you guys take care. Bye.